Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Keisha Dupree, Black Studies professor and creator of the SoulJourners Academy. Haven't posted in a while. Bear with me. It's the beginning of the year. I'm back in the classroom. My sons are back in the classroom after an amazing summer. We had our first SoulJourners Academy family study abroad trip. And I just want to talk about one of the resources that came out of that study abroad trip. You want to see it? You want to see it? Woo-hoo. Yay. This is our book. I'm sorry, who is our? My book. This is my book. Now, I've written 2 books, countless chapters, peer-reviewed articles, and all the academic stuff. But this baby right here, well, this was my biggest challenge because I was trying to create, number one, a kids' activity book for our trip to the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica that was geared towards a school-age child, those between maybe second and advanced second grader, sixth grader. I had the challenge of introducing them to the area, to the landscape, to the animals, the wildlife, the things that you think about when it comes to Costa Rica. But I also wanted to introduce to them the side of Costa Rica that tourists never really talk about. If you Google Costa Rica family trip, if you go on YouTube and type in Costa Rica family trip, they never tell you, almost never, ever, 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 ever tell you about the Caribbean coast. So, quick question. When you think about Costa Rica, what comes to mind? Beaches, maybe eco adventures like zip lining or rafting. We talk about La Fortuna and the Arenal, right? Guanacaste coast. Maybe you talk about coffee. That's cool. That's cool. I've done all that before too, but that's only part of the story. See, the side of Costa Rica that tourists never talk about is the Caribbean coast, where you will find the confluence of Afro, Tico, and indigenous voices and communities that carries these amazing stories and traditions and culture that you just won't find when you Google it or pick up the average travel brochure. And guess what? That is exactly the kind of story that your kids should be learning while they travel. Stick around because I'm going to show you how you and your family can experience this hidden side of Costa Rica and how your kids can dive into their very own interactive activity book. So, I want to talk about the creation of my book. My challenges are already kind of gotten started with that. And I'm also going to talk about some other discussion points. So, the three things that I had my challenge with doing and the points that I wanted to make. So number one, again, was I wanted to concentrate on an area that when you think about Costa Rica, you don't always get there. So this was trying to go beyond a travel brochure and create real stories, real stories. The book features activities, kids activities and readers. And I cover 3 central areas. You start in San Jose, which is where your trip would start if you're heading to the Caribbean coast. And then we go to Puerto Viejo, where we spend most of our time as families during the study abroad. And then we also travel and spend time in Bribri territory, in Bribri land. And why do we spend time in Puerto Viejo and Bribri land? It's because of those stories. And point 2 is that stories matter. Afro-Tico and indigenous stories matter. So another question, why do they speak Spanish in Costa Rica? Spain is all the way over there. And we take it for granted that in America we speak English, and in Latin America they speak Spanish, which is not the languages, the indigenous languages. So kids get a chance to be introduced to Spanish, but it becomes very clear that Spanish is not the original language. Spanish is a language of the Spanish colonizers. And when we go to Bribri territory, not necessarily in the book, but when we go to Bribri territory, we do learn a little bit of the Bribri language and the Spanish language and the English words for those. But it's important here. One of my challenges was to try to take, this is supposed to be this is a decolonized view of the Caribbean. So not only am I trying to introduce you to the things that you're usually going to see, the flora and the fauna, the birds and the rainforest and the sloth. That's great, and that's what, you know, a kid's book would have. But I'm also trying to teach culturally sensitive and sometimes controversial topics. Like when you understand that Costa Rica and the language, the lingua franca of the country, is because of colonization, and that without Spanish coming and taking over territories, that there would be a host of different indigenous languages in the region. I also tackle the issue of slavery, because there is a major shipwreck off the coast, the Caribbean coast in Costa Rica near Cahuita Point. So I also talk about civil rights and human rights, and how it wasn't until the late 1950s that Jamaicans who had come to the country almost 100 years before that did not have the right of birthright citizenship. And I talk about the man, Alex Curling. Alex Curling was the Thurgood Marshall of Costa Rica. So these are, you know, quite different stories. And these stories and these voices matter. And they're told not only in stories in the book, but during the tour, kids and their parents get a chance to talk to the voices of the descendants themselves. So back to the book. I'm tackling colonization. I'm tackling transatlantic slave trade. I'm tackling resistance. And I'm also talking about the beauty of that resistance. I'm tackling Pan-African liberation with the highlight of Marcus Garvey. This book is full of gems, and it's delivered in a way that is kid-friendly and that they can understand. If you're going to Costa Rica, I encourage you to check out the Caribbean coast. And if you're not going and think about going, this is a great book for people who are focusing on kind of decolonized education. So the link to the description is in the box. It features all of the things I talked about, stories about Alex Curling and his fight to get birthright citizenship rights, not only to Jamaicans who came, but to all foreigners who arrived in Costa Rica and helped build this infrastructure. I talk about, again, Marcus Garvey, talk about the shipwreck of a slave ship that was on its way to another Caribbean island, and what happened to those slaves when they fought back and ended up on the shores of Costa Rica. And I also talk about the indigenous first peoples of Costa Rica, highlighting the Bribri people and Pablo Prespere, who is an indigenous hero fighter against Spanish colonizers. So the link is in the description. Check it out. And I will also be happy to tell you about what's happening next on SoulJourners Academy. We are planning a trip to Jamaica. That's January 1st through the 7th, starting in Kingston, and with the same ideology and the same focus on looking at African and indigenous voices, focusing with a Black-centered, indigenous-centered perspective about the island. It's not your typical tour. You will not be sitting at an all-inclusive, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a time I have done it myself. You will not be sitting at an inclusive resort, laying on the beach. We'll have beach days. We'll have beach days, but it's about learning, community, and culture. We'll be looking at Rastafari philosophy. We'll be looking at the birth of reggae while we're in Kingston. We'll get a chance to have a farm to table experience. We will also culminate the trip in attending the Jamaican Maroon Independence Festival, which is on January 6, 2026. Then for spring break, we're going to New Orleans. So again, Black voices matter, Indigenous voices matter, history matters, history of resistance, as well as the history of oppression. And that's what my tours and my books are all about. So the link shows that you can pick up this book right now. If you want a free digital download of an excerpt from this book, it will be sent to you. If you want to just purchase the book, it is $29.95 for a digital copy. You can go print it up at a regular kind of office supply store. And I'll give you some points on how to get a nice spiral bound cover so the kids can go in. I should have shown you some pages, huh? Here's a table of contents. I don't know if you can see because that's backwards. So these are all of the sections. So you get your Costa Rica facts. Your kiddos have time to do reflections at different points in the trip. So you have a pre-trip reflection, you have a middle one, and then you have another one, and then you have a final trip reflection as they think about things that they've seen and the stories they tell. So again, I told you there are 3 kind of points of interest. So we've arrived in your arrival to San Jose, then in Bribri territory, and then in Puerto Viejo, and then Cahuita. And then there are games and puzzles in the back for them to just on their routes too. They have some stuff to play. There is at least 40 Spanish words translated throughout the book. In just your regular list, your 1 to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then your the different fruit are done in Spanish. And then all of the kind of scavenger hunts that are in here when you're looking for animals, most of those things are translated in both the English and Spanish. I wanted to give them a starting point for speaking the language. But again, this is a decolonized piece. So we do talk about the first peoples of the region. Yeah, it's a great book. It totals 47 pages. But don't be daunted. Some are blank for doodles and for questions. This is a great book, and I will be announcing soon. There's an adult online. That sounds, I don't mean adult, like, why have they dirtied that word? Get your mind out the gutter. There is an online course for people, for grown-ups. There we go. There's a grown-up online course that this is a companion to. So whatever we get into that's at a kid's age are going to be in the online course, more lectures and kind of primary sources that you can check for yourselves. So when your kid gets this, they're going to have questions. And the grown-up online course, which is coming out soon, we will be able to answer them and give them more resources than I could contain in a book. So I'm really excited about this. Again, this is not my first book. It won't be my last. I will also be coming out with a book for Jamaica. I'll be coming out with a book for New Orleans. So you can look for that. And you can always go to my website, KeishaDucree.com, and send me an email if you want to know anything more about the offerings of the SoulJourners Academy, whether it is the family study abroad trips, or the book itself, or the books that are coming out, or the courses that are coming out. I'm so happy that I've got my first trip under me and my first SoulJourners Academy book under me. And I hope you can join us in the future. Bye.